The Dutch Knight captured his second world championship. The Red King made a spectacular PFL debut. A top prospect shined greatly in the LFA main event. And we have a knockout of the year contender from the UFC. Welcome to Cage Minds MMA show. I'm Micah Frankel. Let's get started with the highlights. Start off with Wednesday, one on TNT4, and it's the Dutch Knight dominating the Burmese Python. Renerde Ryder, just like when they met for the middleweight title, takes Lanslang down to the ground. But this time, it's a much longer fight. It goes all 5 rounds. And Sang is able to avoid the rear naked choke, but can never get rid of the hooks, can't get back to his feet. When he is there, he's too tired from the heavy grappling in the previous rounds to make any sort of impact. Ryder is now the light heavyweight and middleweight champion. Following the fight, he issues a call out to Brandon Vera, the one heavyweight champion. Obviously, Reiner has in mind becoming a 3 Division 1 champion. Back a week prior at one on TNT3, Rey Yunoki won the opportunity to face Eddie Alvarez. Alvarez at one on TNT1 had the controversy of a ground and pound TKO called the disqualification that he eventually had to argue to get overturned to a no contest. A chance to resolve all that issue and take on Uki. Oki proved to have great technical counter-striking. Alvarez got his takedown on, had some really good control time, but in the end, the judges favored the counter-striking, the damage that Oki was able to do around Alvarez's eyes, and gives Oki the decision victory, biggest win of that young fighter's career. On the prelims, we had a trilogy fight. The former one lightweight champions meeting Shinya Aoki and Edward Foilong, and Foilong was unable to keep this fight off the mat. Aoki, the greatest submission artist in Japanese mixed martial arts history, gets his takedown, traps the legs, advances to mount, and then takes home an armbar finish. Then after the fight, Aoki calls out Sage Northcutt. The dude also sounds like a Japanese general commanding people when he is on that mic. One on TNT. That series of events is now done. Be interesting to see when we get one on TNT5. Hopefully you tuned in. Hopefully you gave another promotion a chance. Saw even some world-class Muay Thai and kickboxing in action. It's a little bit different. Hopefully you get to enjoy all the different presentations that MMA delivers throughout the world. Thursday night, back to ESPN and PFL. The 2021 PFL is event number 2. And it was headlined by the debut of the Red King. Rory MacDonald taking on short notice replacement Curtis Millender, who was replacing David Mearchard, a PFL finalist in the 2019 season. We had seen Mearchard in the finals. Unfortunately, due to a heart condition, Mearchard having to retire. Millender getting a big opportunity. MacDonald accepting the fight, and then once it begins, opting to go for his takedown. The single leg, he was attacking it, but couldn't get it to work. Changed his tactics up to the double leg, puts Millender on the ground, takes the back off of the pressure, forcing Millender to move, and then it's a rear naked choke finish for Rory MacDonald. The co-main event, your 2019 PFL welterweight champion, Ray Cooper III, took on Jason Pawnett, and it was a pro style, talking about Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant body slam from Cooper, putting Pawnett on his back, then getting into the half guard, and from that half guard, it was an arm triangle finish. Was still stuck in the closed down half guard. Incredible power and pressure from Ray Cooper. Normally a maneuver that you need to free that leg, create the space, get away from the hips to really be able to finish it. I think I've seen it twice this year with that shoulder pressure, but that's the first 2 times that I can recall. Also on the card, Antonio Carlos Jr., incredible submission expert, against pro wrestler and wrestler Tom Lawler. And early on, it was the Carlos Jr. jab. Lawler actually jumping guard for a guillotine, a bad move. And once they were to the ground, Carlos Jr. advancing to mount. Once a couple shots opened up the opportunity, Lawler looked to get back to his feet, but it was Carlos Jr. jumping on a guillotine for the finish. And the biggest knockout that we saw at the PFL, that came courtesy of Cesar Ferreira, who put his teep kick right into the sternum of Nick Rodick, taking away the air, closes the distance, and start firing off his straight left right hooks until the fight ended. Big win there for Mutachi. Move on to Friday night, where UFC Fight Pass was hosting LFA 106. The main event, a prospect with more pressure than a lot of prospects. Josh Savario, the son of ATT founder Conan Savario, against Rafael Viana, the Glover Teixeira protege. And it was Savario, the Division I wrestler, ducking under earlier, getting deep on a double leg, and once Viana tried to tripod up to get back to his feet, it was Savario taking the back, immediately attacking the rear naked choke, and forcing the finish very quickly. And that was the theme of LFA 106, where the co-main event, it lasted just 17 seconds as Tarek McKenzie is able to put his high kick, the heel of his foot glancing off the top of Luis Galvino's head, and McKinney, once they're on the ground, is able to pound out Galvino, who had fallen onto all fours. The side punches, great finish from McKinney. Rewind it to earlier on in the card, where Trevor Wallace came out looking great. A stiff jab hurts Bubba Grant. Grant is then in retreat mode. Wallace in full attack mode, running after Grant, but can't find the finish. Once recovered, Grant is able to stun Wallace. Wallace tries to get in on the takedown, but it's Grant sprawling flat down and able to spin around, taking the side of Wallace and pounding to the finish. Will Elliott versus Armando Gutierrez. Will Elliott scoring 2 knockdowns early in the first round, and then has the back, nearly has the rear naked choke locked in. Somehow Gutierrez is able to survive, and then able to get to Elliott's back. Quite the comeback, crazy stuff, win by rear naked choke for Armando Gutierrez. Move on to Saturday, UFC Fight Night, Reyes versus Prochazka. And Prochazka versus Reyes, I mean, this was a banger. Fight of the year candidate here. Reyes comes out whipping that left leg. Chin checks Yuri with a straight left down the pipe. Has the Czech Republic fighter checking for all of his teeth. Then you saw Yuri firing back a right cross. He's starting to hurt Reyes. Reyes then looks to change up the game. Gets the takedown. It's not a fundamental get up. It's more of an explosive turnover and burst. But Yuri is able to get back to his feet. That's when he starts unleashing his wide looping combinations. In between rounds, you can see that there's blood coming from both nostrils of a Reyes nose that, at that point, I'm speculating, could have already been broken. And there seemed to be damage starting to build up around his eye. Not to be deterred, though, you have a Reyes who is standing in there, willing to fire his straight left back at every moment when they're exchanging in the counter. And yes, he does hurt Yuri one more time to the detriment of where Prochazka looks to shoot in on the takedown. Not much gets done on the ground. Raises back up to his feet, and that's where Prochazka seems to have a second win and starts to attack one more time. And you guys will remember the combination where he comes in, peppering with the right hand, throws another It's a wide right hand, peppering right hand, the elbow, the step-in elbow. And with that second right elbow, you can feel the spin coming of the left elbow that connects, gives us our knockout of the year, and sends an unconscious Dominic Reyes plummeting towards the mat. Reyes is out cold, and in 2 fights, 2 huge quality victories over 2 former title challengers, Yuri Prochazka now looks to be the automatic #1 contender and next in line. We know that Jan Blachowicz will be defending the light heavyweight title against Glover Teixeira, and Yuri will be there waiting for the winner. In the co-main event, a star possibly born. He's a huge kickboxing veteran in Giga Chikadze with that Giga kick. Talking about that left body kick that's able to connect with the liver from the southpaw stance. Switching stances. That left kick goes high. Swanson blocks it. There's a follow-up punch. And then the kick gets fired again. Swanson blocks high. Chikadze goes body. It connects with that liver. And for all of Cub Swanson's toughness, he was not able to put on a game face with that body shot crushing. Drops to his knees, a couple punches, it's academic. And Giga Chikadze is in the win column with the biggest win of his MMA career, now at 13-2, I believe. And Chikadze in line for a huge fight next time out. Called out Calvin Kattar, called out Max Holloway. Hopefully we'll get to see those. They'd both be fun striking matchups. In the feature fight position, things got chippy at the weigh-ins. They always do when it's Ian Kuntilaba. He took on Dustin Jacoby. And the Moldovan came out hot, came out getting his takedowns, and came out aggressively overwhelming the Colorado kickboxer, having Jacoby stuck against the fence, and it looked like a TKO was about to be academic, but to his resolve, Jacoby is able to survive what was surely, at least on one judge's scorecard, a 10-8 first round, and I kind of felt the same. As the fight wore on from that point, though, you saw the technical striking come out, the use of a jab, and the use of tactics, slipping and ripping, to the point where a gassed-out Kuntilaba ended the fight, having been taken down by Jacoby. When we go to the judges' scorecards, it goes Kuntilaba, Jacoby, draw. I could see that draw. I said somebody scored it a 10-8 first round. Well, the other 2 rounds were for Jacoby, and we get a split draw. I think I can agree with it. Sometimes a fight is just that even. It's just that even when there was an overwhelming first round and then 2-1 second rounds with not as much dominant fashion. But it was 2 rounds to 1. So if you really scored a 29-28 Jacoby, I can't be mad at you. That 29-28 Kuntilaba, a little bit out there. Earlier on the card, not in controversial fashion, just making his way up the ladder. Sean Strickland versus Christoph Jocko. Something had to give as both of these guys came in on win streaks looking to get deeper into contention. Coming in with that number 15 next to his name, Sean Strickland put on the pressure, walking down Jocko, threading the needle with his sharp counter striking. In the second round, started to really put the damage on, battering up Jocko. Strickland just kept the pressure up, and in the second round is when he started to nail these nasty outside leg kicks, hampering the mobility of Jocko. Great use of energy from Strickland. Would have wished for him to go for it a little more when he had Jocko on the rope, so to speak. 87-42 in total strikes. Sean Strickland keeps his number 15 with the decision victory. Merab Davishvili, number 12 versus number 13, Cody Stamann. A big one there in the bantamweight division, and it ends up being the vintage Davishvili performance, where it was the takedowns, it was high paced, it was high volume, it was sporadic, and it was active. 47-22 at distance strikes, 5-1 in takedowns. Davishvili had his left hook and his right overhand on point this night, and not to mention a sneaky uppercut. Great win for Merab. Luana Pinheiro versus round of Marcos, we must talk about the controversy. If you didn't know, the fight starts out with about 3 eye pokes from Pinheiro against Marcos before Marcos ends up on her back and launches an illegal up kick that knocks Pinheiro into a different plane of existence, and then in the end that fight is ruled a disqualification. Not really sure how that one got listed as a disqualification because, well, one, we've seen a lot of illegal fouls, low blows, eye pokes, all of this. A fight cannot be called a disqualification in the first round. That's normally how it's been treated. But on this occasion, after 3 eye pokes, yes, the eye pokes from Pinheiro to Marcos needed stitches, required stitches. There were no points deducted. The fight was able to continue. Marcos did land the fight-ending foul, but with it being 3 fouls to 1 devastating foul, with both athletes fouling each other, garnering one a victory and calling the other one disqualified for their actions, seems way egregious when the fouls were allowed to permit and there were no point deductions. It feels like a totally unfair system, and that feels like a complete example of something that should have been called a no contest. 3 eye pokes, you try to poke her eye out, she kicked you illegally on the ground, we're even Stevens at this moment. Let's just call it a no contest, call it a day. That didn't happen. We also had controversy earlier on in the card. Kamaka III versus TJ Brown. Dude, both guys came out. Smooth jab, working it well, popping each other. Kamaka then starts to work the leg kicks, starting to take out the legs. Went up high. I don't know how TJ Brown is able to survive this head kick. Brown regains his composure, fights back to the point where he stuns Kamaka twice more. It's an incredible first round. But it's just the first round. Then in the second round, Kamaka is able to drop Brown with a straight right. You figure Kamaka getting the knockdown wins that second round. And in the third round is where controversy really pokes its ugly head as Kamaka gets 2 takedowns. And you would have thought that those takedowns might have been enough to ice the cake. But unfortunately, referee Jason Herzog allows TJ Brown to 4 times grab the cage. And I'm not talking about a little cage grab. At one point, while he is on his back, is able to grab the cage to a point where he turns on his hip. That is what allows you to get on your feet, to push off, to start the stand-up process. For some reason, referee Jason Herzog allows, without a point deduction, without real action or real action taken, allows 4 fence grabs, and then the decision in a split form, controversially, goes the favor of TJ Brown. A TJ Brown who they obviously give the third round to, and I don't know if that fighter wins that round if he doesn't cheat and grab the cage to get back to his feet. Definitely a wild night at UFC Fight Night. Time to jump into some headlines. UFC news, heavyweight Rafael Pessoa has accepted a 2-year suspension from USADA. Apparently one time testing positive for a banned substance and another time not being able to be located for a test. In other news, Denis Borda is out and Bruno Silva will be stepping in to face Victor Rodriguez at UFC Fight Night on May 22nd. Leon Edwards versus Nate Diaz has been removed from UFC 262 and moved over to UFC 263, which has been announced to take place in Glendale, Arizona. It's reported that a minor injury to Diaz is what is cause for the minor postponement. Chaos Williams will be taking on Matthew Semmelsberger in a welterweight matchup at UFC Fight Night on June 19th. UFC 264 on July 10th has gained a bantamweight bout that'll see Sugar Sean O'Malley against Louis Smolka. UFC's Fight Night on July 17th has gained a middleweight bout that is going to see Rodolfo Vieira, the Jiu-Jitsu ace, versus Dustin Stetsfultz. And then on June 24th, UFC Fight Night has 3 additions. At bantamweight, number 10, Rafael Assunção is going to be taking on number 14 ranked Kyler Phillips. Also at bantamweight, Randy Acosta versus Adrian Yanez. And at welterweight, Mickey Gall versus Jordan Williams. In LFA news, LFA 107 has been announced for May 14th. That card will see fights including Vernon Lewis versus Alejandro Sorlazano, George Garcia versus Ricardo Diaz, and Josh Hinderman versus Anthony Garrett. The following week, May 21st. May 21st, people, you got LFA, Bellator, and Invicta all the same night. LFA 108, May 21st. That's Josh Frem versus Gregory Rodriguez. In the finals of the middleweight title tournament, you're also going to see Ronnie Chialoe versus Mark Klamaco, and Clayton Carpenter versus Nick Clam. Also, in some One Championship news, you'll see One Championship back on May 15th, where Brandon Vera defends the heavyweight title against Arjun Bular, the UFC vet, and B-Win will be facing Rit Fugat. Turn our attentions over to this weekend's action, and the action starts Thursday night, PFL 2021. It's event number 3, and the whole card is on ESPN. 8 fights. Actually, 8 of the 9 fights. 1 fight early. Going to be your ESPN Plus prelim. We'll start off at the top. The main event featuring the heavyweights this week and the lightweights. The women's lightweights. It's Fabrizio Verdum, the former UFC heavyweight champion, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ace who has 18 finishes, 12 by submission, taking on young prospect Renan Ferreira, 6'10 Brazilian, has 5 of his 6 wins by knockout, has a 100% finishing rate, a huge opportunity for that young man. The co-main event has your 2019 PFL Women's Lightweight Champion, Kayla Harris, the unbeaten judo Olympian, against Marina Moraes. Harrison, 75% finishing rate. That's 6 finishes over 8 wins. That's 3 subs, 3 knockouts. Well, Moraes comes in on a 3-fight win streak. Also on that main card, you'll see the little brother of Kamaru Usman, Muhammad Usman, who's going to be taking on Brandon Sales. Usman's on a 4-fight win streak, has 5 wins by stoppage, 3 knockouts, and 2 submissions in his young career. While Sales comes in on a 3-fight win streak. He has a 100% finishing rate, has stopped all of his wins. 3 knockouts, 2 submissions. Those 2 big boys are going to get down. That one will not last long. Also in the heavyweight division on the prelims, want to spotlight Denis Glotsov versus Justin Willis. Glotsov, 80% finishing rate, 10 knockouts, 10 submissions for the Russian veteran. Well, Willis has a 50% finishing rate, and 100% of those finishes are by way of knockout. That's your PFL on Thursday. Friday, Bellator is back, and we have a lot of news on Bellator 258. James Gallagher out, Patchy Mix, the number 2 ranked bantamweight, he's now facing UFC vet Albert Morales. Yoel Romero out of the light heavyweight World Grand Prix, and now Team Pitbull protege Jose Augusto is jumping in to face Anthony Rumble Johnson. Costello Van Ives, he's had to pull out of facing Lorenz Larkin, who is now going to be taking on former middleweight champion Rafael Carvalho. Carvalho was released from the promotion, has been brought back for this 1-fight contract, and it was interestingly enough that 24 hours prior to this fight being announced, Carvalho had been announced to headline LFA 107. Obviously, that is now changed. The main event of Bellator 258, it's Juan Archuleta defending that Bellator bantamweight title against number 1 contender Sergio Pettis. Pettis on a 3-fight win streak, a technical striker. We've seen that all of his career coming out of the Rufus Sport Camp. Well, Archuleta has a wrestling background, and we've seen his striking acumen is very good. He was able to outstrike Patchy Mix to win the title I'm willing to believe that he'll be looking for his takedowns in this fight, as that would be the path of least resistance, looking to put Pettis on his back and not strike with the kid that's been doing it all of his life. You also, like I said, you have Rumble Johnson versus Jose Augusto. Augusto does have 5 of his 7 wins by stoppage, a submission win in his last fight in Bellator, and it will be so many years since we've seen Rumble Johnson, about 4 years to return. His coach, Henrik Hoof, is saying that he's looking bigger, faster, stronger, hitting just as hard as he always did. That is a dangerous premonition for the rest of the light heavyweight division. Also on the card, number 1 ranked lightweight knockout artist Patrick Pitbull Freire is going to be taking on his Irish rival, Peter Quilley. Quilley 12-5. Again, look for Pitbull and his vicious knockout power. Also on the main card, Michael Venom Page against Derek Anderson. This one had been put together and fallen apart a couple times. We know about the vicious striking from Michael Venom Page, the one-shot knockout ability, the flying knee that crushed Cyborg's head, his one-of-a-kind, unique karate style that throws everybody off, and still able to catch guys with crazy submissions if you do try to make it a grappling affair. Derek Anderson, California fighter, was a lightweight, stopped cutting weight, has filled out to a full welterweight, is a striker primarily. This one should be a banger because Anderson knows one way, and that's going forward. Your prelims, Bellator really stacking this card up nicely for the prelims. The featured one, number 7 ranked bantamweight Josh Hill against number 4 ranked Rufian Stotts. Hill comes in having won 4 in a row. Well-rounded fighter. Stotts, the same thing, a well-rounded fighter. 7-fight win streak, but has a higher level wrestling pedigree if you're looking for something that's going to make the difference. Hill, a Canadian who's been traveling around for his training, really does have great fundamental striking, can take it to the ground and control, while Stotts all the same, and he comes out of that Rufus Sport camp. Logan Storley is also on the card. He's the number 5 ranked welterweight in the division, and he is going to be taking on unranked Omar Usyk. You have to know about the dominant wrestling pedigree and ground and pound that Logan Storley brings in. And also in a bout featuring ranked fighter, you will see number 6 ranked middleweight Johnny Albin taking on Arizona's Daniel Madrid. Madrid, 18-6, has about 4 times the experience that Albin does at 7-0. Madrid can catch submissions off his back and has shown and displayed great striking. He can win by knockout. I think this is a tough one for the 7-0 fighter against a guy that has so much experience but has lost 6 times, so there are holes to be exploited. Friday on UFC Fight Pass, early in the morning, like 4 a.m., there's Eternal 59, and then 8 p.m. at night, you have a doubleheader, Alliance Fighting Championships 8 and Lux 13. All of that leads you into Saturday, where the main course is UFC Fight Night, and wow, has this one been on a roller coaster ride. Due to a laceration in his eyebrow, TJ Dillashaw has been pulled out of his returning main event against Corey Sandhagen. Due to different views, Diego Sanchez has been released from the UFC and will no longer, obviously, be facing Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Alex Morono to the rescue, replacing Sanchez to fight Cerrone. And it looks like the main event right now, which has not been made official, is going to be a top 15 strawweight contest where Marina Rodriguez will face Michelle Waterson. That's number 6 Rodriguez against number 9 Waterson. So that would be a talented Muay Thai striker who has done well so far in her UFC career, except for having the obscure asterisk of 2 draws in the octagon to her credit. Well, Michelle Waterson has the karate stylist. She's gotten more into her Muay Thai striking as the years have went on. We know she's a threat off of her back. The former Invicta FC champion, a division below at atomweight. So we know that would be a fun one but it hasn't been made official by the UFC at this time. Donald Cerrone versus Alex Morono, which you need to know about that one. Cerrone, 27 finishes, 17 by way of submission. Morono, 18 wins, 11 finishes, 6 by submission. Morono, straight up kind of stance, comes in with his boxing. Well, Cerrone, we know he can pound with the leg kicks. He'll look to turn and go high, pepper with his jab, maybe bring in that overhand right. Also on the main card, a top 10 welterweight matchup. Neil Magney, number 9, against number 10, Jeff Neal. We know Magney likes to work his takedowns from the clinch. If he's not looking for the takedown, he's trying to use his length. He's huge for 170 pounds to try to keep the fight on the outside. Well, Jeff Neal is more of your traditional boxer, wrestler. He's trying to jab to get his way into land power shots and to possibly scoop you up, put you on your back, and then pound you away. Also, a matchup between ranked opponents. This card is stacked. In the lightweight division, number 12, Diego Ferreira, who has 10 finishes. He's won 6 of his last 7. He has 7 wins by submission, taking on number 14, Gregor Gillespie, an incredible wrestler who has 11 finishes of his 13 wins, 6 by way of knockouts. That's 5 by way of submission. Gillespie, an intense wrestler, he's looking to bounce back from that head kick knockout loss to Kevin Lee. One more ranked matchup, that's in the women's strawweight division, top 15 rankings. It's number 11, Amanda Ribas. Incredible judo and jiu-jitsu. When she gets on the ground, she's a dynamo, taking on number 12 ranked Angela Hill. The incredible Muay Thai, vicious kicks, technical striking. Ribas willing to strike, but Hill does have the technical advantage. Grappling, a big advantage for Ribas. That one will be interesting to see if Hill will be able to keep standing. And as far as what is speculated to be on the prelims, the feature one to focus on has Kyle Dakas versus Phil Haase. Dakas, 8 of his 10 wins come by submission, while Haase is on a 5-fight win streak. 9 finishes, and 7 of them come by knockout. Both guys have a collegiate wrestling background. Dakas has been incredible at grabbing Darius chokes, while Haase uses his wrestling in reverse and would much rather stand and look to knock you out. UFC Fight Night this weekend. It's UFC on ESPN 24, so that main card definitely going to be available for ESPN. And who knows how that card could change by the time we get there. It's a lot of speculation going on right now. We talked about the highlights. We talked about what's going on breaking news-wise. And then we got to this coming weekend. Don't forget to visit CageMinds.com or keep up with us on social media. Cage Minds Combat Sports News on Facebook. It's CageMinds_CSN on Instagram. And it's at Cage Minds MMA on Twitter. Also, thanks to Anchor FM, you can find Micah Frankel's Cage Minds, the podcast, where we get a lot more in-depth on opinions and just on the stories that are going on around MMA. Yeah, you can find that podcast everywhere. Thanks for watching.